Welcome to Thermal Birding. Today we're joined by Patrick Hancock in the UK. Just want to tell us a little bit about us and why we're here and why we've decided to do this. So a little bit about WMRG and the thermal. Paul Hopwood, who's on here today, and myself found ourselves in a field in 2016 looking for lapwing chicks by eye, and it was quite difficult. So at the end of the session, myself and Paul thought there's got to be a better way to find lapwings. And we came up with the idea of thermal imaging. So we borrowed a unit from Nick Barlow at Marsh Lane Nature Reserve, and it was a real success. So from finding by eye, I think we found 7. And then with the thermal, we found over 29 in the same amount of time, including nests, eggs, and chicks. So what we did then was we applied to West Midlands Bird Club for funding and were successful with them seeing the foresight of this technology. So we're able to obtain that funding, and they purchased a thermal imager for us to use, and the rest is history. We then shared what we did quite widely across the world and the UK, and in 2021 we were awarded the BTO Marsh Award for Innovative Ornithology, which we're really keen to now carry on sharing that knowledge, which is why we've decided to set up Thermal Birding YouTube, so we can kind of speak to other ringers across the world around their experiences and share everything we do to try and get more people to use it. So today there's myself, Ben Dolan from West Midlands Ringing Group. There's Hoppy. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Hoppy from West Midlands Ringing Group. Work with Ben, and thermal birding really is my passion.
Thanks. There's Tom.
Yeah, I'm Tom from Thomas Jacks, and we obviously distribute and import Pulsar into the UK, and obviously supply all retailers. So anyone with Pulsar gears on the shelf obviously comes in direct through us, and we obviously work close with Ben and Paul.
Fantastic.
On their activities.
Lovely. And the guest today, a ringer from the UK, is.
Well, hello. I'm Patrick Hancock, and as said, yeah, I'm a bird ringer from southwest of England, near Bath, near Bristol, and yeah, I've done a bit of nest finding using a thermal imager.
Great. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Pat, and the work you've done with the thermal.
Well, I mean, I'm a licensed bird ringer through the BTO, and have been for, I don't know, a few years. And I've also been doing some nest finding, because the sort of two work together quite well, I think. And yeah, ringing young birds in the nest is a useful pastime, occupation. And I've been using the thermal imager for about just a couple of years now, and was looking into seeing whether the thermal imager would be an aid to finding passerine nests. So yeah, so I gave it a go and to see what would happen, really. Sorry, you're muting.
What have you found kind of using it? How have you found using it?
Well, I mean, it's easy to use, really. I mean, it's just to point it at a bush and see if anything glows in it. I mean, I'm not a great nest finder, so I mean, any aids to finding nests, particularly sort of species like blackcaps and anything else which sort of nests in sort of your bramble thorn bushes, I sort of struggle a bit finding them visually. So yeah, I mean, I've been trying for yeah, sort of black caps, dunnocks, garden warblers, that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it works very well with a thermal imager, sometimes it doesn't. So I mean, it's yeah, it's an interesting process to try and find out whether whether it's going to work for you or not.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because obviously I've seen your work on the Facebook group, the thermal Facebook group, and not many people use it for nest finding, and it's something me and Hoppy have spoken about for a number of years, and we were quite surprised that more people hadn't done it. But then seeing you use it more and more and more, and actually some of the results you're getting has been really interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I started doing it, I mean, I was kind of looking to see on the internet whether there were any people having a go, whether it was successful or not. And I couldn't really see anything on the internet about it. So, you know, the only way of finding out is take your thermal out and have a look, isn't it? So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, it does, sometimes it does make finding nests very easy. Sometimes it doesn't help matters at all.
So what are the challenges? So obviously, if you've found before without thermal, what have been the challenges before that, after thermal, and have you increased the number you're finding with thermal?
I mean, yes, I have increased the number of find because, yeah, like I say, sometimes it does make things so easy, particularly sort of early in the year, you know, sort of the first clutches, sort of around sort of April, end of April, May time, when there's not so much density in the vegetation you're looking through. And I suppose that's the sort of key really, is to as further on in the year when the vegetation does become more dense, it does pose difficulties in finding nests. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't find them, but yeah, it does, it makes it harder. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I've found nests that I wouldn't have found otherwise, and I've found nests that I could go more or less straight to using the thermal, which would have meant, I don't know, 5-10 minutes searching around previously for the nest visually.
No, it sounds all positive, to be honest.
Well, it is. I mean, like I say, you know, it is remarkable how easy sometimes some nests can be. But I think the big caveat that I would put on it is that just because you can't see a nest on that particular occasion doesn't mean to say there isn't one there. Because if there's a female sat on the nest or an adult sat on the nest, nests show up very nicely. If the nest is not yet started to be incubated, then it ain't going to show up at all because there's no thermal image there at all. There's no heat signal to find. So it depends on the circumstances, and I think that's the key. So yeah.
For what you've been doing, I mean, if anyone else wants to jump in, feel free. But with what you've been doing, because I know there's a lot of thermals out in the market. I was kind of wondering what thermal you were actually using.
Well, yeah, I'm using a Pulsar Helion 2 XQ38F, and I mean, it does the job. I think it does the job more than adequately. I mean, I think it's probably a bit overspec'd for nest finding, to be honest. But I mean, it seems to be a good all-round thing. So if you're doing sort of nighttime surveys or trying to catching your woodcocks and stuff, yeah, I think you need a bit more than the basic ones. But for nest finding, I think the Helion is possibly overspec'd, because all you need to do is find a heat signal. You're not looking for any detail or anything. All you're looking for is that white spot amongst a load of grey.
Yeah, I think I mean that brings us quite nicely on to Tom, I think, around the spec, because that's an XQ, and a lot of people ask, well, what's the difference between XQ, XP, So I was wondering, Tom, maybe you could jump in there.
Yeah, so as you said, Ben, there's various sensors and numbers. So in terms of the sensors, you've obviously got your XM sensor, which is a 320 by 240 thermal sensor, an XQ sensor, like what Patrick's got, and I think you use as well, don't you, Ben? So the XQ sensor is a 384288 sensor. And then you've got the higher spec sensor, which is an XP sensor, which is a 640-480 sensor. So you starting on your XM, your XQ, then your XPs. And then the numbers behind that sensor, if you like. So the XQ38, for example, the 38 refers to your lens size. So for example, I've got one here. This is a Helion XP50 Pro. That's a 50mm lens. And then on this one here is an Axion. That's an XQ35. So again, an XQ sensor with a 35mm lens. Different lens sizes give you different fields of view. So for what Patrick's using for finding nests, I presume a 38mm lens probably suits you more, doesn't it, Patrick, over 50, because it gives you a bigger field of view.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than adequate. I mean, because it's got a standard 3 times magnification in it, and to be honest, you don't really need that either. I don't think. I mean, a sort of a 1 times magnification, I think, would probably be adequate, because you're not looking at anything distant. Everything you're looking for is, I don't know, within 10, 15 meters of you. And if not closer than that.
And in terms of colour palettes, most people don't generally know. People think of thermal, you've got your white hot and your black hot, but on all of Pulsar's models, for example, you've generally got 7 or 8 different colour palette options. Have you ever tried using any other colour palettes? Does a particular colour benefit you? Because Ben, have you tried any other colours at all?
I do red colour palette for all nest box checks, and I find that it brings out the bird better. And in long grass as well, when I'm looking for oyster catcher chicks, I use red heat, and I find the chicks a lot easier.
Right. Because we've had some feedback. Most people, like myself, I use your standard white hot, black hot, because that's my personal preference. But some people prefer red hot or even the sapphire or rainbow colour, because if you are looking for it for a long period of time, it is quite, it's nicer on the eyes and not so sort of straining.
Yeah, I think sort of like the nighttime stuff, when the red, I can't remember what the palettes are called, but there's a red one, and that kind of is a bit easier to look through at night, not so dazzling for yourself, really. But for a nest finding, I mean, it's white hot is fine for me. I've tried sort of the more colourful ones, but it's the white is fine.
Yeah, stick to what you're used to.
Yeah, because like I say, sort of you're just looking for a thermal signature in amongst a load of grey vegetation, or hopefully grey vegetation anyway.
Yeah, I think it is quite interesting with the different palettes, because I know a lot of people do use different palettes all the time. But like as you said, Pat, it's quite interesting, because I know you said, like, for nest finding, the XQ38 might be overspec'd, but what I've said to other ringers that contact us is that's great if that's what you want to have a look at, but just think about what else you might want to use that for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one that I've got is it seems to be pretty good for all round stuff. Yeah,
because we've used quite a few different ones, and not just Pulsar, and some just don't have the range that you need. So if you're dazzling, they don't pick up the birds on the range. Whereas, as I said, just think about what you're going to use it in the future for, and not just buy for that one use. So you're better off getting a more kind of one that will suit other areas of ringing or surveying, really.
Yeah, I mean,
Patrick, I just wanted to talk to you really about how long are you out in the field and talking about battery life, really.
I've never had problems with battery. I don't think I'll stay out long enough for that.
No,
I mean,
but as a ballpark figure, how long do you think you're out with your device, Nest Finder?
well, I don't know. It's a morning's worth. So, I mean, you know, sort of 7 o'clock till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I mean,
And you're getting a good 4 hours use out of it, and
yeah, I mean, yeah, easy. I mean,
and do you use a spare battery? If you invested in a spare
I
battery?
do have 2 batteries, yeah, which just makes things a bit easier for charging. But
And it's, you'd find obviously then if you're out, if you did have a battery empty, you've got the ability to change across to another external battery. Do you think that's quite important?
it's I only go out with a charged battery, so I mean, I don't go out half measures, as it were.
No, you're
yeah, I mean, it would be. I mean, it's just easier having that external battery, I suppose, isn't it? But I mean, it's a bit sort of, well, whatever, really, for me anyway.
Yeah. You haven't experienced getting in your car then in the morning and realising you've left the thermal on, like me and Ben have done many times.
Well, I've borrowed one from somebody else for that, and that's happened.
Yeah, I just think with these devices, and when we're moving forward and looking at how we use them and their different capabilities, I love the fact that I've got a spare battery pack. So I've got one sitting with me now, and it just gives me that extra confidence that I'm never going to have to worry about a charging issue. So it's just something I just wanted to think. But if you're getting a good 4 hours out of it, that's quite a lot, really.
Yeah, I mean, a full charge just lasts for, I don't know, however. It's more than adequate, and I mean, you can go out twice, 2 days on the trot without bothering recharging.
Yeah. I mean, I've got an additional one, and it gives me probably 6 hours use in the one battery. It's that sort of impressive, really. So I've got the IP7 one, and it gives me such a long amount of time. I'm not worried about it so much.
But if you press it on standby, because you've got the ability to put it on standby, and it's on, which will probably see you even longer than that.
Yeah, so on the Helians, for example, you should easily, comfortably get a good 7 to 8 hours, if not slightly longer, depending on conditions. Yeah. But if you briefly tap the power button, it will just turn, well, it'll turn to the display off mode, so your screen's not lighting up, and that will save you some battery life.
I'm not fit enough to be out that long anyway.
But
I mean, that's the sort of thing, really, isn't it? I mean, yeah.
But I suppose for the surveys you're doing, having a thermal, whether it's a Pulsar or any other make out there, suppose it makes it quicker and easier for you. So before, it probably took you, what, 3 times as long? And now with a thermal, it's, what, halving the time? Because you're able to go around fairly efficiently and effectively and going, yes, that bird nest is active, or this, that, and the other.
It's a good point you make there, Tom, and I think that's a real big thing that me and Hoppy have pushed since day one about reduction in time in the field and reduced disturbance. Are you finding that, Pat?
Sometimes. I mean, like I say, sometimes nests do show up so well that you can more or less just go up to the patch of bramble or hedge or whatever and stick your head in, and there's the nest, sort of thing, right where it's been glowing through the thermal. But I mean, it depends. If the nest is not showing very well thermally, or it's not showing at all, then it's, you know, back to conventional ways of doing things. But yes, it can allow you to go straight to a nest, which is nice.
Have you got a story of your best nest find with the thermal?
Well, I've got a few images and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great,
just in case a question like that was asked. But I don't know. I mean, it's an example of what you can see, I suppose, using the thermal for a nest, which
you should be able to share.
Let's see where we go.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll see how this works, won't we? But this is sort of a blackcap's nest in a hedgerow, and this is me walking along. It's rather shaky, but hopefully it shows the nest. This is the sort of thing which you would see.
Yeah. I think sometimes with the sharing on Zoom and stuff, it just takes a little bit longer, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Is that showing up?
It's not
Looks all right to
playing.
me.
It's not playing at the
Patrick,
moment.
you might need to start the video, Patrick, and then press share again.
Right, okay. So you haven't seen any of that then?
No,
Oh, no.
Yeah, if you start the video and then pause it and then share that screen, that should do it.
Let's have a go. Any luck? Was it
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
Right, so that was the end then. Let's start again. Maybe.
Yeah, if you just press play.
So, like I say, this is me walking along, holding the thermal, pointing at hedge. I'd found a nest before, but I thought I'd use this video it just to see as a demonstration of what a nest looks like thermally. And I mean, I don't know. To me, it shows up.
Yeah, I picked it up
plainly.
straight away. Yeah.
What you'll find is on all recordings, it never seems to look as impressive as physically through the device, because it compresses the image when you download it, and then when you upload it like you're showing there, it just blows it all up again. So sometimes you try and talk to people about the different sensors, and if you get it up on screen, it doesn't kind of do it justice. But I can kind of see where you're pointing at in there. But how often do you find that, this is just a question for myself really, how often do you record what you're doing? Do you record it for your data to then go back and review? Is it a great feature?
It's, well, I mean, yeah, for identifying birds. I mean, particularly for when you're doing stuff in fields, looking for, I don't know, woodcock, snipe or whatever. Yeah, being able to video something and review your footage afterwards is
beneficial.
Very, very helpful. Yeah.
Right.
Because, and you know, sort of like if you're doing counts of birds and stuff like that as well. I mean, I just do it for nest finding as a record of what I found, and as for demonstration purposes as well. Because yeah, I think it's just the being able to show an image rather than just talk about it. I think it's probably a useful thing. So yeah, I mean, for identifying birds and trying to work out what you've seen, it's very handy, because you can show it to somebody else and they probably know a lot more than what you do about stuff.
I noticed on your footage, which is probably what Tom can answer, there's a rocks forest, then the eye symbol, and you can choose different ones, can't you, Tom?
Yeah.
What does that do?
That basically changes different modes within the unit. So thermal works on thermal works on conditions. So if you've got a rainy, drizzly, misty night, you might find that rock mode just enhances the image slightly better than on forest mode or identification. So it just adjusts the levels, if you like, within the software on the device to try and give you that best image that you can get.
Okay.
So between those three modes, rock, forest, and identification, you've also got you can adjust the brightness and contrast as well. What you find is if it's just been raining or absolutely hammering it down, if you adjust the contrast up a bit, you can kind of bring that image back.
Okay.
So most people will obviously change those settings and then adjust the brightness and contrast to suit. Because you'll set it one night and then you'll go out 2 days later, a week later, use those same settings, and you won't get the best out of the device as what you could have.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So you just want to then change it again. So it all depends on conditions and what where you are and everything else.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's about getting to know your imager and just fiddle around with it and see what happens. See what setting works best.
Yeah,
I like that as a tagline.
Just going back to the colour
know your
palettes as
imager.
well.
Know your
Going
imager.
back to the colour palettes, it's just get used to the device, know what it does, find out what modes work best for you, and because everyone's different, everyone prefers different settings and modes and colour palettes. The best thing I always suggest is just if you first get one, make yourself a cup of tea, or if you're a drinker, get yourself a can or a bottle of lager, sit on the sofa and just have a play.
Yeah.
Before you go out in the field.
Difficult Friday night, that is.
Have you got any other videos, Pat, that you want to show? Or
well, I mean, I'll have a go with showing some. So this is going to be sort of if it shows, tell me.
It's not yet. Maybe press share again, like Hop said.
So hopefully, oops, let's press that button.
Oh yeah, got it.
Success.
Yes.
Very good. So I mean, this is sort of an early blackcap's nest that I found. So this was doing sort of during the process of seeing whether a thermal imager can find nests. So I knew that there was a blackcap's nest in this patch of brambles.
Oh.
Right, and we're going to get to the next image. So the nest is somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what it looked like thermally when the sun was in. But when the sun comes out, you get all these other additional signals coming in. So, I mean, you do need a cloudless, ideally, the less sunshine you get, the better.
Yeah.
Because then the nest shows up nicely. I mean, it's a white dot in amongst a load of grey is what the nests look like.
Yeah.
Really. You're not expecting to see anything spectacular. But yeah.
That's really interesting and actually a real good comparison, because if anyone was trying to nest find with the thermal there, you wouldn't even consider that as a...
Yeah, I mean, you don't. I mean, you could spend time looking at these nettle leaves which are reflecting the sunlight and try and work it out. But I mean, there's another, I don't know if my arrow's showing or not, but there's another potential nest to the top right of the actual nest, which potentially could be a nest. But I mean, this is another view of the same patch of nettles, and the nest is in there somewhere. So you can sort of see the nest visually.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not a particularly obscure nest to find, but showing up thermally, you know, you do get these kind of nice sort of textures of the nest going on. So,
and it's about understanding what you're looking at, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Just
definitely
recognising that is a heat source of a nest or a bird and not a...
Yeah, well, I mean, that could be a bird, you know, in a bush. It could be a bee, it could be a fly, could be, you know, anything with a sort of heat source.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, well, then you go and have a look, don't you? See what it is.
I think you've hit the nail on. Sorry, Hop.
I think what I've learned over the last 6 years of using them is that the reality is it's about practice and getting out into the field to use them, knowing your thermal, like you've said earlier. But actually, the more you use it, the more you get accustomed to what it's seeing and what you're looking at. And I think if people do get them to persevere, because it does, you do hone in on what you're looking at. I think it's just takes a little bit of patience to start with before you fully get the benefits of it. I mean, I'm still learning, but I've got to the point now where I've used it so much, I know where I'm going to look. I know what the thermal should be showing me. And it's just about perseverance and experience with it.
I agree.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, yeah, it's first times. If you get successful on your first time out, then that's nice, isn't it? But yeah, keep on going with it, really. And the more you use it, the more you use a thermal, I think the more possibilities may arise from using one as well.
I couldn't agree more on that point. So kind of coming towards the end of this, which has been, to be honest, fascinating, because as I said, I've loved looking at your work for ages now. So it's been really good catching up with you and talking to you. Lots of people are still contacting us about they want to get in thermal and that type of thing. And I was just wondering, from your point of view, what advice would you give to people around using thermal? You know, is it worth it? If they've got the finances, you know, should they go for thermal? Would it make life easier?
Well, I think it's a fascinating world that it opens up, really. I mean, yeah, the problem is they're quite expensive to buy, and and I would say buy the most expensive one that you can afford.
Yeah.
But I haven't used a variety of thermals, so I don't know how they all work at all. But I kind of imagine, looking at some of the videos which have been posted and stuff, some of the cheaper pulsar ones seem to be able to do pretty much what the more expensive ones do. Probably not as well, probably not as crisp an image, but you know, it's better. I would say it's better than not having one.
Yeah. Well, we still, believe it or not, we still use our, Tom probably will have to correct me on this, but I think it was a Quantum X something XD50S or something. So we brought one in 2016, still use it. It only gives you a white dot for heat source, but it is an absolute fantastic piece of kit.
That's all you need. Well, I mean, that's what I mean for nest finding. All you need is a white dot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think you can underestimate what that XD50 did for us. It changed what we knew about birds and how we could use thermal. And that first device was probably 2 or 3 times more expensive than some of the newer pulsar models now. So
it was £4,000.
Yeah, and it still works. It's going strong after 6 years. It's had thousands of hours use. So I'm with you, Patrick. We trialed some recently. I think the whole of the pulsar range is good. I mean, the newest sort of low level model it's just perfect for getting into it. It's a great device at a decent cost price point.
I agree. In terms of, now you've used the thermal for a bit, Patrick, is there anything on it that you think, oh God, I wished it'd do that, or you know, it's a shame it didn't have this, or anything like that?
Well, not really, no. I mean, I think, you know, it does the job for me.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not really designed for working close, for objects which are close to you, because I mean the focus doesn't go down to your feet or the I mean a couple of meters in front of you. I think 3 meters in front of you, I think, is the published range of it. But so I mean, it could do with focusing a bit closer, but I mean, that's not really an issue.
Yeah, we used to have a 2.5, which was quite nice for lamping because you could gauge where you'd bring your torch up to quite well.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, whether it'd be interesting to see one with lower magnification on it,
Yeah,
just to see whether that's effective or not. But again, you know, the one I've got suits me.
well, the one you got is brilliant.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's the one we use. It's the one we've used for years. It's really good, and it's an all-rounder.
Well, that's why I bought it, really. I mean, it's a commitment to buy one at the price, but
Yeah,
it's yeah, it opens up another world. Yeah,
but people spend that on binoculars or scopes, or so it is just another piece of kit, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I say, I'm not having used one, so I can't speak out of experience. But I would think the cheaper model, I think, as long as you go for a brand which is designed for, I don't know, the shooting fraternity.
Yeah,
I think probably any of those would probably work fine. It'll, yeah, the more you spend, the better it's going to be. The better your experience is going to be. But
well, I want to say thanks for coming on today, Pat. I mean, we've got a minute left, so I just want to say thanks very much for coming and sharing your experiences. Thank you again to Tom, who's come and just shared some of that technical knowledge with everybody today, which is really good.
No, you're welcome.
As well. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. It was really informative, and it's something I need to go and try more.
Yeah, well, I don't see why anybody wouldn't, really. Why wouldn't you want to go out and find some nests?
No, I'll be doing that, but I think me and Ben are just off to go and see if we can find some skylarks.
Right, okay.
Right, see you later, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Cheers,
Thank
Tom.
you. Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you, Patrick. Cheers,
Right,
Ben.
cheers, then.
Cheers all.
Thank you, gents.